Okay, thank you very much. We'd like to start the public comment session. I'd like to welcome and thank our public comment speakers for addressing the committee today. We're very interested in hearing what you say. All the speakers today submitted a request in advance of the meeting to speak. The final list of public speakers, commenters, was determined via a lottery. For the speakers, I want to remind you that we have a total of 75 minutes for public comment allotted. And in order to make this work and allow each of the speakers to have their allotted 3 minutes, it's important that you stay on time. I will remind you there will be a clock on the screen behind me that will signal red and end at the end of your comment period. If you go over that, I will remind you when you go past 3 minutes, again at 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and at 4 minutes we will have to close the mic in order to allow others to go forward. I also want to remind you that there are written comments available to you all on the website that you can read, and that your engagement and your comments are essential to our work. We take them seriously, and we appreciate your presence for being here. So without delaying this further, let me call the first speaker, Mr. Bigtree.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Del Bigtree. I'm the CEO of the Informed Consent Action Network. Many of you received our 88-page review. We've been in a debate with Health and Human Services discussing actual safety of vaccines, which is something I don't hear happening in this room anywhere near enough. You cannot discuss safety without placebos. You're not using placebos. Comparative control studies of vaccines that themselves have never been tested against a placebo is a joke. And we find ourselves in an autoimmune disease crisis, and no one here seems to care about that. I want to talk about the fact that I've been here a year and a half. I've been watching you, and I've watched discussions about things like Japanese encephalitis. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but nobody seems to be complaining about the fact that we have 2 vaccines that had injury rates, adverse events of over 100 people, 9 serious adverse events, when the disease itself has only infected 12 human beings in 24 years. That means both of these vaccines are 6 times more dangerous than the disease itself, yet no one on this panel seems to want to discuss that. I imagine you're all going to pass whatever it is with Japanese encephalitis next, the stupidest vaccine known to man. Remember, 12 people infected in America, 4 million people visiting the Asia every single year, 24 years, 12 people have been infected, and yet we're having these conversations. It's clear that this is a money-making operation for the vaccine maker, has nothing to do with actual safety. The next discussion would be, I could go into pregnancy and vaccines. We have a warning that there's a 7-fold increase when getting the flu shot to pregnant women in the first trimester. We've actually challenged the FDA. I've sued and won lawsuits against the National Institute of Health now and the HHS, and we just settled with FDA because they've admitted they never tested a flu shot or a Tdap vaccine on a single pregnant woman in the trials, yet you guys are assuming safety and giving it to pregnant women, and then overriding any signal you have from your own studies in the first trimester that it could be causing miscarriage. And then to get around it, we just heard a study where we compared 1 vaccine to 2 vaccines as though that somehow gets to the bottom of the answer, instead of, how about we compare women that are getting vaccines during pregnancy to those that are getting none? I could go on and on with how these discussions, but the hepatitis B vaccine discussion, Hepaslav, you approved a vaccine at 100%. You asked great questions. You said, has this brand new adjuvant that's going to start messing with our toll-like receptors, has it ever been given with other adjuvanted vaccines? No, it never has. No data on that. But let us be known, we're going to give them together at the same time. Oh, we'll just assume that that will be safe. Moving on, we know that there was 14 heart attacks during the trials. You brought it up here. You said in the discussion, it's an alarming signal, but we'll see what happens. That means our citizens are now test groups, a part of a medical experiment you were putting on them. That is a direct violation of the Nuremberg Code. This is the state of settled science. You're the only scientific body that's actually saying your science is settled in the entire world.
Thank you for your comment.
And this is how you're doing it. I hope you will start being scientists and actually caring. Let's have a placebo study and let's compare vaccinated to unvaccinated before we destroy our living control group. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Alvin Moss. Mr. Moss, please.
Dr. Romero, Dr. Cohn, members and guests, I am a nephrologist. I work with the nephrologist who observed that dialysis-associated encephalopathy was caused by aluminum in the water used for dialysis. These patients developed a speech disorder, and then they had personality changes. With repeated exposures to aluminum on dialysis, they got progressively worse and died. At autopsy, they had very high concentrations of aluminum in their brains. When the aluminum was removed from the dialysate, the syndrome disappeared. Second, in preterm infants, pediatricians noted that intravenous feeding with aluminum-containing solutions led to long-term neurologic impairment. Like for dialysis patients, the aluminum neurotoxicity was cumulative and dose-related, with the toxic effect or the neurotoxicity being seen when the infants had received 450 micrograms or more of aluminum. Third, in a case report in a series of 159 autistic patients, neurologists at Hopkins described a 19-month-old healthy little girl who, within 48 hours of receiving DTaP, Hib, MMR, polio, and varicella, containing a total of 850 micrograms of aluminum, experienced fever, inconsolable crying, and refusal to walk, which progressed to autism. In her workup, the neurologist found mitochondrial dysfunction. In their series of 159 patients, they found findings suggestive of mitochondrial dysfunction in 47% of the autistic patients. Others have observed a similar rate of mitochondrial dysfunction in autistic patients. The neurologists hypothesized that the oxidative stresses of immune activation with vaccination compromise brain cellular energy metabolism in patients with mitochondrial dysfunction, leading to regressive autism. In postmortem studies of autistic patients, researchers have found concentrations of aluminum in their brains as high as those in patients with dialysis-associated encephalopathy. Why am I telling you this? Well, first of all, we now understand aluminum neurotoxicity. It occurs in a susceptible population after repeated exposures with a cumulative toxic dose. It's eradicated when the aluminum is removed. So the vaccine schedule of the 26 vaccines that are administered by 18 months in the CDC vaccine schedule, 61% contain aluminum for a total of 4,925 micrograms of aluminum. Children receive an aluminum-containing vaccine on every single visit till 18 months of age. In sum, cumulative parenteral aluminum causes brain damage.
Your time has expired.
Thank you. Causes brain damage in some children. Please
Thank you very much for your comment. Our next speaker is Alison Singer. Ms. Singer, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Alison Singer. I'm the co-founder and president of the Autism Science Foundation. I'm also the mother of a daughter diagnosed with severe autism, and I serve as legal guardian for my older brother, who's also diagnosed with severe autism. The Autism Science Foundation's mission is to support research to uncover the causes of autism and to develop evidence-based treatments for people with autism. Toward that end, over the past few years, scientific studies have shown that genetic abnormalities and structural brain changes are apparent in children with autism as early as the second trimester prenatally. We are also developing diagnostic biomarkers that enable reliable diagnosis at 6 months and as early as 6 weeks in a lab environment, which is well before behavioral symptoms even emerge. As we all know, back in the 90s, there was concern that autism might be caused by vaccines. At that time, I shared that concern. But dozens of research studies have indicated that this is not the case and that vaccines do not cause autism. Fortunately, the vast majority of our families have been convinced by the weight of this evidence and have vaccinated their children. However, there are still a handful of families who have a child with autism who choose to withhold life-saving vaccines from their younger children. Studies confirm that the younger siblings of children with autism are among the lowest vaccinated in the country. As a member of the Federal Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee, I can appreciate the substantial amount of work that the ACIP and working group members conduct in preparation for the votes on each of your vaccine recommendations. It is reassuring to us to know that the committee uses the GRADE approach, which is an evidence to recommendations framework. However, with the recent increased public interest in this committee's deliberations, due in part to the ongoing outbreaks of measles, influenza, and whooping cough nationwide, the Autism Science Foundation asks that the committee spend time during the next scheduled meeting, and perhaps on an annual basis, explaining the process used to make its recommendations, including a clear description of the type of vaccine safety data requested prior to making any new or revised recommendation. A description of the type of safety data reviewed for each vaccine should be prominently placed on the ACIP website. This type of transparency would go a long way toward boosting public confidence in your deliberative process and would also be very valuable to advocacy organizations seeking to provide resources to vaccine-hesitant families. The National Academy of Sciences has also conducted several studies over the past decade which affirm the safety of the childhood immunization schedule. This month, the Academy has taken the important step of developing a web page to further clarify its position that vaccines are extremely safe and have few side effects. I would urge the committee to link to this declaration via the ACIP homepage as well. Thank you for your work, and thank you for helping us to provide important and useful resources for our families so that we can encourage them to keep their children safe by vaccinating them.
Thank you very much. Next is Ms. Laurie Boyle. Ms. Boyle?
My name is Laurie. I'm the mother of 2 fully vaccinated, successful young adults, and I'm a registered nurse of 22 years. The last 5 of those as an advanced practice nurse. I'm here today representing the organization Nurses Who Vaccinate. We are a grassroots organization that works to provide up-to-date, accurate information to the public and to our fellow healthcare workers regarding vaccination. I received a very strong foundation in evidence-based practice at Rutgers University, and that has stayed with me to this day. Unfortunately, around the same time, I also became aware of misinformation regarding vaccination. And it was very disheartening for me to see so many people, including nurses, fall prey to sensationalist headlines and misinformation while I was learning how to research and to evaluate peer-reviewed literature. I discovered Nurses Who Vaccinate while in grad school, and through them I found a way to share those critical thinking skills that I was acquiring and share them with other nursing professionals. My first job as an APN was with the largest infectious disease practice in the Northeast. While in that practice, the need for sharing legitimate information on vaccines was only reinforced. I saw young, otherwise healthy college students in the ICU with flu. I saw countless people with pneumococcal disease. I saw people at risk of losing limbs due to meningococcal disease. Imagine my disbelief when, after caring for those people, I then encountered nurses who refused the flu shot or advised others against vaccinating based on misinformation. Nurses are the #1 most trusted profession in America for 17 years straight. We have a duty and an obligation to adhere to evidence-based practice. Anything short of that is a betrayal of that trust that is granted to us by the people of the United States of America, and it diminishes the credibility of the profession as a whole. Nursing as a community has the ability to make a difference in this current climate of distrust that many people have with the medical establishment. The majority of us know the importance of adhering to science-based information. We understand that the vast preponderance of evidence worldwide is in favor of the current vaccine schedules as the safest and most effective means of preventing the diseases which they target. We can provide evidence-based education to the public and to our fellow healthcare workers to ease their concerns about misinformation that seems to spread like wildfire across social media. I urge my fellow nurses to join me in this endeavor to keep people healthy, to reduce the spread of preventable diseases, and to join Nurses Who Vaccinate. I would like to thank the committee for their tireless hard work and dedication to health and well-being of the United States, to the people of the United States, and for allowing me for this moment to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Ms. Pam Raid.
Hello, thank you very much for the opportunity to be heard. My name is Pam Raid, and I'm an immigrant from Germany, and I am vaccine injured. In fact, 3 out of 5 people in my family are vaccine injured. Leaky gut, autoimmune disease, allergies, learning disorders, ADHD, OCD, sensory issues, food aversions, just to name a few. Vaccine injury is hardly rare in my family. I sustained a vaccine injury during my immigration process in 2007 after receiving the following required vaccinations: MMR, polio, DTaP, Hep A, Hep B, rotavirus, meningococcal disease, varicella, pneumococcal disease, and the flu shot. In other words, in addition to these 20 antigens, I was inoculated with MRC5 human diploid cells, DNA and protein from aborted fetal tissue, hydrolyzed gelatin, monosodium glutamate, fetal bovine serum, that's cow blood, aluminum phosphate, formaldehyde, glutaraldehyde, verocells, a continuous line of monkey kidney cells containing HIV-like retroviruses, neomycin, streptomycin, polymyxin B, that's 3 different types of antibiotics, and 3 known avian retroviruses in the flu vaccine, along with the neurotoxin mercury. Detergent Triton X100, which is known to break down the blood-brain barrier, among others. This is per your recommendations, all based on no placebo-controlled scientific data on the vaccine ingredients, the synergistic interactions between all components, separate or in combination for 30 years. Here's the HHS response to the lawsuit filed by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in 2017, where they admit to that. This is scientific fraud. Your job is to protect public health and not the pharmaceutical companies' wealth, who have zero liability for their impure products per the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program established in 1986. Since vaccination does not equal immunization due to primary and secondary vaccine failure, the only immunity in existence is the immunity for the vaccine manufacturers from lawsuits. The science isn't settled. It is being censored. With your recommendations to add further inadequately tested vaccines, such as the Japanese encephalitis vaccine and Gardasil, for travelers like me, you are playing Russian roulette with my health and that of my family. No healthcare pays for my injuries. Instead, I'm being bullied, berated, and denied my constitutional and religious freedoms. Autoimmune disease, cancers, allergies, asthma, autism, neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, ALS, Lyme, etc., driven by the contaminants and excipients of these inadequately tested vaccines are causing this epidemic of chronic disease in the US. And yet, the 2,000 serious vaccine injuries per year reported to VAERS are being ignored and dismissed, while a few dozen people with measles are being considered a state of emergency. Until the federal law is obeyed and the safety and efficacy studies are done on the whole CDC schedule, you should not add a single vaccine to the schedule. To do anything else is ethically unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Marcy Flickinger.
Good afternoon. My name is Marcy Flickinger, and I come here from Pennsylvania. I'm a concerned citizen and mother to 3 children. I know that there's a lot of emotion here today: anger, hope, disbelief, and lots of concern. I'm not here to talk about the emotional aspects of vaccine injury. I'm here to talk about the science. There's a growing body of evidence which has raised legitimate concerns about the following facts. Number 1, according to both the CDC and FDA's websites, there are no clinically approved adjuvants, only clinically approved vaccines as a whole. So what that means is the whole is considered safe, yet the individual components have never been deemed safe. Number 2, according to the Gardasil 9 pre-market trials, aluminum was used as a placebo. A placebo is defined as an inert substance. I know, and you know, that aluminum is not an inert substance, and yet it is being used as the placebo. Using aluminum as the placebo control group is unethical and obscures the outcome to the safety profile for this vaccine. Number 3, according to Dr. Plotkin's testimony in a family court case dated January 2018, when asked the following question, in order to establish whether it's causal between the vaccine and the condition, you need a randomized placebo-controlled study? Under oath, Plotkin replied, yes. When asked, but that was not done before hepatitis B vaccine licensure, was it? Under oath, Dr. Plotkin replied, no. And let me state here, as of today, there has not been one true inert placebo-controlled study of any of the vaccines on the current CDC schedule. The IOM states that there are 135 adverse reactions that cannot be determined causal or not. Just a few of these include encephalitis, seizures, meningitis, transverse myelitis. I understand and agree correlation doesn't equal causation, but inadequate data to determine causation does not negate the adverse reaction either. According to the National Academy's Press, and I quote, "The committee encountered many gaps and limitations in knowledge bearing directly and indirectly on the safety of vaccines. They include inadequate understanding or inconsistent information from case reports and case series." They go on to say, "If research capacity and accomplishment in these areas are not improved, future reviews of vaccine safety will be similarly handicapped. These details are too important to ignore when our children's health is at risk." I'll end with this. This has happened time and time again in human history. Science is not static. Romans had lead pipes. Asbestos was used in schools. Tobacco was considered healthy. Cocaine was used in medicine. Over and over again, we have unknowingly harmed our communities. It has taken strong advocates and a lot of strong science to overcome these norms. We have learned and we have evolved. We have righted our wrongs in the past despite the tension that exists between the profits that drive the industry and the science that it could impact that profit. How much longer are you going to turn a blind eye? The fact that vaccine mandates are being considered before you do your challenging job of ensuring vaccine safety is nothing short of reckless. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Ms. Jackie Martin Siebel.
Hello, I am a mother to three immunocompromised children. As a parent to three medically complex kids, I am bombarded with the notion that I and my family and friends must vaccinate ourselves to protect our sick children. We are persuaded to ask our friends and community members to disregard the very real risks of harm from vaccines to protect our kids. Parents of children who are immunocompromised and the medical professionals who work with them must acknowledge that any illness can be a cause of harm and should take precautions as such. The common cold or strep throat can be as dangerous to my child as measles or mumps could. We should not be relying on vaccines to keep them safe, especially given that vaccines protect against very few diseases. There are thousands of other diseases equally or more dangerous, yet the only ones we fear are those that there are vaccines for. A recently vaccinated person is a far bigger threat to my child than a non-vaccinated healthy person is. Why isn't it protocol for doctors to warn parents that their children are contagious during the respective shedding periods for each live virus vaccine? Failure to warn the public of this puts kids like mine at risk. There are viruses and bacteria everywhere. Parents need to do what they can to minimize them for their child without expecting others to put their own child in harm's way for a fake sense of security. My kids are immunocompromised in part because of vaccines. I would never want someone to put their child at risk for the fear of my child getting sick. On that end, we are told that our children are too sick to get vaccinated, and so our friends and family must. Yet on the opposite end, we are at times persuaded to get our own immunocompromised child vaccinated because they are at such high risk with the disease. Some medical professionals push on us the need to get our sick kids vaccinated, even though vaccines can and often do cause more harm than the illness itself would. My children were vaccinated for several years. My older son suffered documented illness and regression following vaccination. He has known anaphylactic allergies to ingredients in vaccinations. Yet, I still get told by some medical professionals overseeing his care that I should vaccinate him because he is at greater risk with the disease. It's doublespeak, all for the purpose of fearing parents like myself into vaccinating our already vulnerable children. Parents of children who are immunocompromised are incredibly scared, and part of that is because of the fear-mongering from those that they trust, including home care nurses, therapists, medical doctors, insurance companies, and government agencies. This program is supposed to be about protecting children and vulnerable populations. These vaccines are not safe for everyone, and universal one-size-fits-all policy should be eliminated. Doctors should be encouraged to take full medical histories and note all vaccine reactions in order to slow down schedules for some kids and skip some shots for others.
Thank you for your comment.
There shouldn't be blanket rules for providing medical exemptions. Every child is unique, and decisions need to be made based on individual risk as perceived by parents in cooperation with their children's doctors. Their fear tactics have really been working, but we need to base decisions on facts and not fear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Ms. Patricia Neuenschwander.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Patricia Neuenschwander. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner, and I've been a nurse for 25 years. I come to you today because as a healthcare practitioner, it is challenging for me to agree to something that hasn't undergone a certain level of rigorous study. None of the vaccines on the current recommended schedule have undergone large, inert, placebo-controlled trials, including Gardasil 9, which is one of the things you're considering recommending in adults aged 26 to 45. The GRADE study, as mentioned earlier, is one of the strongest evidence used to review and make a recommendation. So if I may briefly remind this committee what was presented in October by Dr. Meades. The GRADE study evaluated 16 studies of Gardasil 2 and 4 in adults aged 26 to 45. None of the studies were on Gardasil 9. Not a single safety or efficacy study was presented using Gardasil 9 in this age group. Out of those 16 studies, 7 were randomized clinical controlled trials, which were all downgraded because they didn't use Gardasil 9. Of the 7, 6 used aluminum as an adjuvant, a known neurotoxin, as placebo. By the way, one study, Wilkins, did use 50 HIV-infected women who received a saline placebo because the manufacturer Merck didn't have placebo available. They combined the placebo groups so that no real comparisons could be made between the 50 that received saline, the 176 that received aluminum, and compare that to the 226 that received Gardasil 4. In this study, nearly 10% of participants in both groups experienced a serious adverse event, and the study was stopped early due to futility. It simply didn't work. The evidence presented is not acceptable to me, and it would not be acceptable to other healthcare providers if they were aware of what you are using. I am asking that you require at least one large safety study with Gardasil 9 using a saline control, a harmless substance, before making any recommendation. By using evidence from one vaccine to recommend another, you are bearing false witness. This historical practice of approving and recommending vaccines without adequate safety needs to end now. It is not unethical to do this study. I believe it's unethical to recommend this vaccine without it. Please don't turn a blind eye. You are scientists. You are doctors. You know deep down that it is wrong to recommend something like this without rigorous analysis. You owe the American people a gold standard study before unleashing this on potentially 100 million people. Merck stands to make billions of liability-free dollars from this recommendation. Please require that they substantiate safety and efficacy first. In closing, if this committee chooses to recommend this vaccine without adequate safety studies, will you, the liaison representatives that you're here representing, will you tell them that this recommendation came without one safety study or efficacy study? Because we will. We will scream this horrifying truth from the rooftops. Please do your job and protect public health, increase confidence in the schedule by requiring evidence-based science in your recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Ms. K.J. Moore.
Good afternoon. My name is KJ Moore. I'm an RN BSN. I'm a traveling registered nurse, and I have worked in over 20 hospitals in the last 10 years across the United States, from Florida to Colorado and back again. These are the things that I have seen, the things I have seen regarding vaccines is something most people would not believe.
There is an increase in flu vaccine mandates in many career fields, especially hospitals, in order to keep our jobs. Yet there is currently no law or reason to be vaccinated with a flu shot. Some of these people who received the flu vaccine began getting symptoms, including tingling or prickling sensations in their fingers and toes, muscle weakness in their legs that travels to their upper body and gets worse over time, difficulty walking steadily, difficulty moving their eyes or face, talking, chewing, swallowing, and severe lower back pain. The majority of the time, these patients go to the ER and are sent home with a new prescription to gabapentin or Lyrica. Sometimes they are considered a stroke alert until ruled out and sent home with no formal diagnosis. It is not until they break a foot, a leg, or a hip because they keep falling down that they are admitted to the hospital and further testing is done. Some people who have these symptoms are told it's from the flu shot. However, others are never told the flu shot could have caused their symptoms. Many are never aware they're entitled to apply for monetary compensation through the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program if they receive damages from the flu shot or any vaccine. It's upsetting to see patients who are adults, who have families they need to provide for, who can't work anymore, who don't have answers, and who don't know they don't know they're entitled to compensation. How are they going to take care of their families now? They're regular working and functioning adults like you and me who are now handicapped and never get properly diagnosed or receive help for themselves and their families. Most doctors are not medically trained to look for vaccine injuries, and therefore many vaccine injuries go undiagnosed. When these patients come into my care, they tell me they have been ruled out of everything and the doctors don't know what's wrong with them. This is completely unacceptable given they have textbook symptoms of an illness, status post-influenza vaccine, especially when no double-blind safety studies have ever been done on vaccines with a saline placebo in the last 30 years. More studies must be done and mandates should be suspended until we know for sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Ms. Sandra Spady.
My name is Sandy Spady. I'm here representing my family and all of humanity. These are my beliefs regarding vaccination. As humans, we are dignified. We are set apart. Dignified and set apart because we are fearfully and wonderfully made by our Creator. Our bodies are not just flesh and bones, but rather a temple of the Holy Spirit. Our flesh houses our soul while here on earth. God created us in His image. Life is sacred. We as parents are entrusted with the souls and bodies of the children we bring forth into this world. The Bible tells us, Psalms 127:3 says, "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward." God trusted me and my husband with our children. He trusted our children with their children. He did not entrust our children to you, the government of this or any other nation. I do not consent to handing over my God-given children to the government of the United States of America. I do not consent to handing over medical decisions for myself and my children to the CDC, the FDA, the HHS, the WHO, or to you, the ACIP members who sit before me. Hear me loud, hear me clear. I do not consent. I am here today standing before you speaking out clearly with God as my witness. I do not consent. We can argue science all day, back and forth, without convincing each other. We don't have to agree. I thank the Lord daily that I live in a free country where my rights as a human being are respected and protected by our Constitution. I will not sit idly by as my freedoms are stripped away. I will fight to the bitter end for my God-given rights, which supersede all other rights, my right to bodily autonomy and integrity for myself and my children. Pharmaceutical industry representatives, I've researched your vaccines. I've researched the ingredients, excipients, growth mediums, adjuvants, and manufacturing processes. I reject your belief that vaccines bring about improved health. I reject your religious devotion to science. I know of your corruption and deceit. I know you routinely bear false witness. I know that VICP has paid out more than $4 billion to families whose children have been injured or killed by your vaccines. I also know that figure does not even begin to scratch the surface of the true numbers of injuries and deaths. Hear me loud, hear me clear. I do not consent. I reject your religious belief that vaccines are for the greater good. I reject your belief that herd immunity can or ever will be achieved through vaccinations. I do not consent. As long as there is breath in my body, I will fight for freedoms: religious freedom, medical freedom, freedom from coercion and tyranny, freedom of choice. I fight not only for myself, my children, and my grandchildren, but for all human beings.
Thank you for your comment.
I will fight against all medical mandates. I will fight to illuminate truth. I stand firm, knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that God is on my side. I do not fear because he goes before me. I do not consent. You can vote all day long. Your votes mean nothing to me. The CDC's mandated vaccine schedule means nothing to me. The Constitution does not allow your religious beliefs to trample mine. I do not consent.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker will be Nicole Mason.
Thank you. Before I begin, I just want to ask that my microphone not be lowered in any type of volume because I want to be heard loud and I want to be heard clear. I come from a family with a medical background. If you would have ever asked me before August 2018 if you should vaccinate your child, I would have said, of course you should vaccinate your child. You would have been crazy not to. And then my son was injured. August 2018, I received a phone call from my husband telling me that he was rushing our 4-month-old son to the nearest pediatric hospital. He was defecating blood, profusely vomiting, and very lethargic. The ER doctor asked how long my son's symptoms had been going on and if he was up to date on his vaccinations. My husband said his symptoms were 12 hours in and he received his 4-month vaccines just 4 days earlier. My son was diagnosed with intussusception after a confirmation with an X-ray. I remember a 14-gauge needle taped to the CT scanner in case my son's intestines exploded during the scan. The lead pediatric doctor came in to talk to us and asked her, what could have possibly have caused this? Her answer, it just happens, to some kids for no reason. We don't really know why. This would be a common phrase that I would hear from every medical professional that we encountered, from the ER nurse to the ER doctor to the residents to the head gastroenterologist at the leading pediatric children's hospital in our city, and my son's own pediatrician. The only talk of vaccines was at a follow-up visit with our pediatrician who said that he would not give him that vaccine again, even though he didn't believe it injured him. Correlation does not equal causation, right? About 48 hours after all this went down, I received a phone call from a crazy mother friend of mine who I'd written off a long time ago. She wanted me to let me know that if my son had been recently vaccinated with the rotavirus vaccine, that I needed to read the insert because there was your answer, right on that insert, intussusception. I can accept the fact that adverse reactions can happen, but then I started to question what those adverse reactions actually were. And I started weighing the risk of the disease I was protecting him against from the risk of the vaccine reactions. That was my light bulb moment. Something is wrong. Something is very wrong. How is a vaccine that caused my son's intestines to fold in on itself and almost die safe and effective? My husband and I agreed that we would only research medical scientific data going forward on vaccinations. I was under the assumption that all these people just read a blog. After pouring through peer-reviewed science, vaccine inserts, the CDC, the NIH websites, I discovered there is no sufficient science proving vaccine safety. The first shocking thing we learned that there is no double-blind placebo study for any of these vaccinations we give our children. Vaccines are studied against other vaccines. How is that safe and how is that ethical? I started researching the vaccine inserts to find that not only is intussusception listed as a possible reaction, but that sudden infant death syndrome is listed. I was under the assumption that this just happens for no reason. Encephalopathy was listed as an adverse reaction. How is my infant supposed to tell me that his brain is swelling? Or is it just written off as colic and reflux? I don't know. So that's when I knew I wasn't being fully informed. I don't have time to go over all the other adverse reactions, but I came here to tell you we're paying attention now.
Thank you very much for your comment. Next speaker is Ms. Severino, Tia Severino.
And can we please ask that the next speaker, Ms. Cherry, stand up behind Ms. Severino, and so she's available to speak next.
Hi, Tia Severino, Luke's mom. The term scientific fraud describes intentional misrepresentation of the methods, procedures, or results of scientific research. Scientific fraud includes fabrication, falsification, or plagiarism in proposing, performing, or reviewing scientific research, or in reporting research results. The public representation of vaccine science as conclusive proof that vaccines do not cause autism is deceptive and fraudulent at its core. Science is never settled. In June 2000, CDC held a secret meeting called Scientific Review of Vaccine Safety Data Leak at the Simpsonwood Conference Center to discuss the problems with the Verstraeten study looking at thimerosal in vaccines. The transcripts were leaked, showing the very intimate relationship between the CDC and pharma. At this meeting, they determined that there was, quote, no way to massage the data to get the signal to go away. Conveniently, the original study data disappeared. And in 2003, Verstraeten produced another study using children too young to receive a diagnosis. In 2004, CDC published Age at First Measles, Mumps, Rubella Vaccination in Children with Autism in School-Matched Control Subjects, a population-based study in metropolitan Atlanta, comparing on-time versus late administration of MMR. There was no comparison to children who did not receive the vaccine. The findings from this study were so troubling that a decision was made to omit altogether the data showing the signal. This was used to dismiss nearly 5,000 cases known as the Autism Omnibus Proceedings in the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. According to Dr. William Thompson, this study was the lowest point in his career, and today he has massive guilt when he encounters families with autism. He knows he was part of the problem. In 2014, Thompson said the CDC has put the research 10 years behind. Now we're 15 years behind because the CDC is paralyzed by anything to do with autism. Criminal acts of scientific fraud gone unpunished, while scientists who dare to question the vaccine are routinely hounded and their careers destroyed. We are constantly told that hundreds of studies debunk the link and none prove it. Actually, only one ingredient and one vaccine have been studied, and the link was covered up.
Thank you for your comment.
Meanwhile, the list of studies that support causation continues to grow. Studies this body ignores. When you all say the science is settled, vaccines don't cause autism, you are bearing false witness to the public, a violation of the 9th commandment. It is time to stop the lying.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker after Ms. Riley Cherry is Ms. Erin Husky. Go ahead, Ms. Cherry.
Good afternoon. My name is Riley Cherry. I reside in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm a Navy wife of 8.5 years. And together we have 3 boys. We're expecting our 4th son. I'm here today with something to share. My first son was born in 2011, and by 18 months, he knew all of his colors, shapes, numbers to 20, animals and their sounds, upper and lowercase letters, and he was reading sight words. We're talking about an 18-month-old baby. He never cried. He was always smiling, and an overseas screening required an MMR vaccination to go to Japan. A vaccine that I had delayed for controversial information. Day 1, he wouldn't wake up. I called the nurse. She said it was normal. Day 2, diarrhea, vomiting, cranky, and refused all nourishment. Second call placed, was told it was normal. Woke up on day 3 to him beating his head into his crib. He acted like he didn't even know us and forgot everything. I was convinced that it was a coincidence. My son was diagnosed with autism. 2013, my second son was born. 24 hours after his 2-month vaccines, he was rushed to the ER because I found him blue and barely breathing. When they took him out of my arms and rushed him back without us, I didn't know what to think. I was just scared. Sometime later, white coats came out, and I thought they were going to tell me that he was gone. Thankfully, they did not. He's 5 years old today. And again, I was told it was rare. And I was doing the best thing for him. 2017, my baby boy is going to be 2 tomorrow. My third son. I was more skeptical of vaccines, and I spaced out his 2-month vaccines. And at 10 months old, my son was laying under the ceiling fan, and he was hand flapping, doing this. He did not play. He did not coo. He did not smile. He did not track. He did not meet any of his milestones. My 10-month-old was 6 months behind at the time. I started using natural products and detoxed my son, and he caught up developmentally and has little residual damage. My oldest son has far more long-term damage than his brothers. And we owe it to our children to truly look at the long-term effects of vaccines and be honest about what could happen to our children. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Ms. Erin Husky, and could Ms. Mary Pulse Cavanaugh please stand?
Gonna just hold on to this. Good afternoon. My name is Erin Husky. I'm a registered nurse, RN, BSN. I'm also the founder of Nurses for Vaccine Safety Alliance. I do agree that nurses are the most trusted profession, and this is exactly why we need to advocate for our patients' safety. That is our job. In addition, I am also a United States Army combat injured veteran. When I enlisted to serve my country, I swore by oath that I would support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I have every intention of keeping that promise to my country. So when you force a child to take 70-plus vaccines full of aluminum, formaldehyde, antifreeze, cancer-causing retroviruses, aborted fetal cells, to name just a few, and your government mandates this, we have a domestic situation going on. So I am aware that many of you are not even listening to me. And I'm also aware that most of the pharmaceutical company reps sitting behind me right now, they're not listening either. The same goes for the politicians and the lobbyists and even the government, officials that can't even seem to govern themselves right now. So we're being censored here in order to preserve the remaining corruption waiting to be uncovered. And we will. But it's okay, because it's not any of you who get to dictate or decide what we do, and we will continue to expose your corruption day by day. We promise this. So today my speech is not meant for you. I'm speaking to the people wanting answers to their questions. I'm speaking to the American troops that are being experimented on right now. I'm speaking to the people out there who are demanding medical freedom, who are fighting for their right to choose what goes into their bodies, and rightfully deserve the severity over their own lives and the lives of their own children. So this is why we, the people, will win this domestic war of assault, tyranny, and the stripping away of our freedoms fought for with the bloodshed of our own American heroes. So I'm speaking to all the people out there listening, and I'm telling them, let's rise up and take action, because we will not sit beside. We will not allow you guys to control us anymore. So I'll close with this quote written by Thomas Jefferson in a letter to Colonel William S. Smith in 1787. What country can preserve its liberties if its rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms. So we refuse to let history repeat itself. So as a wife, as a mother, as a nurse, and as a defender of freedom, I say this: where there is risk, there will be a choice. So we have solved the riddles of your lies, corruption, and collusion. And you know what? You know that we know. Checkmate.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Ms. Poles Cavanaugh, and would Ms. Amber Barber stand, please? Go ahead.
Good afternoon, committee members of immunization practices and invited guests. Thank you for this opportunity today. My name is Mary Poles Cavanaugh. I'm an autism mom, independent researcher, and a co-author of Thinking Mom's Revolution book called Evolution of Revolution, Autism and the Path from Hope to Healing. I'm also the author of the book on greatness, How to Keep Shining Your Light. I would like to believe the committee, and I am standing before today, are acting on good faith when they are presented with information pertaining to the safety of vaccines and vote accordingly. It is my hope that you listen and retain all the information you hear today and apply it to your voting decision. Vaccines can inflame our brains, delete our DNA, cause microflora dysfunction, lower our immune system, reduce oxygen and blood flow, lower our frequency, and compromise our primary reflexes, which relate to the functioning of the left and right side of our body and brain. I will talk about two personal vaccine-injured cases. Case number one, a 22-year-old girl vaccine-injured at age 2 by the DTaP and Hib vaccine was given the diagnosis PDD-NOS in 2007 at the age of 11 after being misdiagnosed ADHD in 2nd grade. PDD-NOS has recently been removed as a diagnostic code. Removing a diagnostic code does not erase the health condition that looks like the following: difficulty making decisions, impulsive, slow to react, slow to complete schoolwork and homework, difficulty following classmates' conversations, misses social cues, and worst of all, no friends. This young lady does not have the cognition needed to study at an academic college, never mind her very understandably eroded confidence in herself. She struggles with driving because of the processing speed it requires. She has perfect pitch and attends a higher learning arts school on a musical theater scholarship. Frequently, she cannot ride the train to school because of severe chronic anxiety. But worst of all, at times, she is depressed and suicidal. If her mother would get the news that she killed herself today, this would come as no surprise. This young adult I've just described is one of many. Many choose an acting career because in that setting, they can escape the pain of being themselves. She was permanently injured by vaccines she received at age 2. In 2015, the CDC reported an estimated 4% of the general population had thoughts of suicide. However, in adults with high-functioning autism, the number jumped to 66%, reporting suicidal ideation. Case number 2. A grandfather in his 70s developed cerebellar ataxia very slowly after yearly flu shots. The Department of Justice cites this as one of the flu shot table injuries. The flu vaccine contains 25,000 times more mercury than is legally allowed in water. Our blood is 95% water. Our brain and body is made of 75% water. This mercury assault can be very problematic in these conditions. He was permanently injured in his golden years. Why am I speaking to you today? The time has come for a new paradigm. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. The body needs to have the ability to recognize and process everything that enters it. In many vaccine injury cases, this is not occurring. We must come to the realization that no one's body has created the same, and our medical treatment should support that individuality. If this committee were more trustworthy with recognizing vaccine injuries, the public might trust your recommendations more. You have a lot of work to do to regain the public's trust. I leave you with a Bible verse from a doctor, Luke 16:10. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. Thank you.
Thank you. So would Melissa Keough stand and Ms. Amber Barber?
microphone? Do we have one that's working? Thank you. Hold it here. Yes.
Don't hold it here. Hold it here.
Thank you. My name is Melissa Chios. I traveled from New York to speak before you today because I am passionate about children's health. I'd like to add that your recommendations do not apply to my family as we abstain from vaccination since the practice conflicts with my religious beliefs, so I speak to advocate for other children. It is perplexing that this generation of U.S. children is riddled with chronic illness unlike any before. Considering the exorbitant and unprecedented costs we incur for their health care, clearly the reward for our investment in their health falls far short of our expectations. Today's new normal is a generation of children with an incredibly high prevalence of asthma, anaphylactic allergies, skin disorders, seizure disorders, diabetes, learning disabilities, neurodevelopmental disorders, cancer. This is especially concerning since the alarming rates in children's chronic illness is clearly coterminous with the rapidly increasing CDC recommended vaccine schedule. That being said, how can it be responsible to add any additional vaccines to the already overinflated schedule in the absence of double-blind, inert placebo safety studies of these vaccines? Nonetheless, the entire CDC recommended schedule of 72 doses of 16 vaccines. Moreover, it is apparent that this advisory committee is completely disregarding legitimate studies being conducted around the world, specifically with regard to aluminum. The work of Dr. Christopher Exley of England, Dr. Chris Shaw of British Columbia, Dr. Yehuda Schoenfeld of Israel, Dr. Romain Girardi of France, Dr. Zibin Yao of China have all brought to light unsettling safety concerns regarding the use of aluminum adjuvant in vaccines. These studies have been brought to your attention and met only with your silence. I would like to state for the record that I am providing you copies of the many studies I referenced for your review. Another disconcerting fact is that for years, the CDC has been ordered by Congress to conduct a vaxxed versus unvaxxed study, and yet to date, it has neglected to do so. Meanwhile, independent studies such as the 2017 Moss and Homeschool study have compared the outcomes of vaccine-free children to those of fully vaccinated children, revealing that the vaccine-free children have significantly lower prevalence of allergic rhinitis, allergies, ADHD, ASD, eczema, learning disabilities, neurodevelopmental disorders, and other chronic conditions. These findings should compel you to require further research, and it is unconscionable to add any additional vaccines until the proper studies have been conducted. There has also been a history of blatant corruption, malfeasance, and complex entanglements between the governmental agencies and the industries from which they're tasked to protect us, and we are watching your actions vigilantly. I would like to conclude by saying that we who stand before you today put you on notice that we have every intention of holding each and every one of you on this committee accountable for your actions, for dismissing legitimate concerns by respected scientific researchers, and for your pernicious silence. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We will next hear from Ms. Gina Harrison.
Okay. Hi, I'm Gina Harrison, and my son is medically exempt from all vaccines because of the damage of your recommendations. We hear vaccines are being made safer for the future, but what does that say about the vaccines that you've recommended? And if vaccines today are safer than the vaccines of yesteryear, then what does that say about the vaccines that we received as kids? They've never been safe. It's no secret vaccines have never been proven safe, they've never been proven effective, and they've never been proven to eradicate one disease. MMR package insert, page 1, says that the impact of the MMR vaccine can be measured by comparing the number of cases before and after the vaccine. So what you're saying is correlation does equal causation. But we do know one truth about the theory of vaccination, and that is by design, it intentionally creates permanent changes to our immune system. And that's where your science of vaccination stops, and you're rolling the dice after that. Ironically, the epidemic of autoimmune diseases has exploded. The more vaccines you recommend, the more collateral damage we see, and you say that there is no connection. You're also recommending vaccinations during pregnancy and day one of life when there is no public health threat so great someone would need to inject known toxins with known risks during an infant's most critical time of development, and with zero proof backing your claims. So if you're truly interested in controlling epidemics, start doing proper double-blind vaccine studies using a true inert saline placebo. Our children deserve gold standard testing, and you need to make safety a priority over profits. Stanley Plotkin's deposition, page 165, and he states, if you're looking for a phenomenon occurring in the vaccine group, you cannot judge that phenomenon without having a control group, and you blindly added every vaccine to the schedule using junk science. You've not only failed the public safety, but you've also failed at controlling simple measles rashes within communities whose vaccination rate is 100%, and that destroys your herd immunity theory. So if you cannot fully guarantee the safety of your products that you're forcing on the public, you have no right experimenting with our lives. And until the numerous lawsuits of fraud surrounding the safety has been fully addressed and this CDC is compliant with the law, the entire schedule needs to be halted, and the power of adding vaccines to the schedule should never be left in the hands that profit from them. Self-investigation and fraudulent studies should never be allowed, and stop hiding behind the 1986 Act that protects any vaccine maker from being sued. And lastly, you need to stop BSing the public and let the dangers be known, because we're not going away.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ms. Elizabeth Keough.
My name is Liza Keough. I'm from North Carolina. I'm a wife of over 25 years, a mom of 7 children, and a follower of Christ. Protecting religious rights when it comes to what is injected into myself and my family is of extremely high priority. Many states are setting bills in motion to strip those rights from us. This is due in part to misinformation provided to them about the value of vaccination over other methods of being healthy. It is also stemming from a misguided belief that vaccines are the best way to protect the public, and that those who hold religious beliefs regarding vaccination are standing in the way of that protection of the public. We simply cannot know for sure if the vaccines are the best way to protect the public if we continue to refuse to study the overall health of the vaccinated versus the completely non-vaccinated. In my own family, for example, my healthiest child is my youngest, who never received any vaccines. All 6 of her older siblings had at least 1 vaccine each. All of her older siblings have at least 1 chronic condition, such as allergies and eczema. Hundreds of other families have told me the same thing. They stopped vaccinating their children, and their younger children are healthier than their older. Is this true for most families that have stopped vaccinating or who never started? I suspect so, but we can only know for sure if the studies are done to compare vaccinated to fully non-vaccinated using the information found in the Vaccine Safety Data Link. Regardless, God has placed my children in my care, and I need to be able to make the decisions for that care, including what medical treatments they receive. I'm sure that you believe that what you're doing is right for protecting people, but there needs to be more caution. The recommendations you make here are immediately added to the schedule and ought to be made with excellent data. I watched as you voted unanimously to add a vaccine recommendation for hepatitis A with very poor data as your source. Even when there is evidence that the vaccine is harming some, it is still approved, as with the hepatitis B vaccine and its issues with myocardial infarctions. Seeing decisions like that only serves to reinforce my mistrust of your care about the citizens of the United States. It reinforces my resolve to protect my family as I believe God wants me to. I'm here to let you know that I'm watching what you're doing, and I will speak up about what I see. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Erica Gesser. Ms. Gesser. Yes.
Let's go. Okay, I'm a little short. I gotta adjust a little bit here.
I thank you for your time. My name is Erica Geiser. I'm a constitutionalist and a hip-hop activist that stands for freedom, justice, and human rights. I'm honored to be representing the sweet angel babies, those whose lives have been taken at the hands of your recommendations. This patriotic dress I'm wearing should represent freedom and justice, but instead holds the names of so many victims. These injustices are being committed by our very own government and the agencies tasked to keep us healthy and safe. Last night, I added a new name to my dress. First red stripe here, Christopher Eugene Bunch. His brother sadly didn't get selected to speak and wanted to address this committee today. I'm very connected to my higher power, and as a messenger of God, when you're called upon, there's no question. I will always be a voice for the voiceless. This young man lost a huge part of himself, along with his little brother, to the HPV vaccine. His family's life has been destroyed by a pharmaceutical product that was recommended to them by the ACIP. The World Health Organization says the risk of getting cervical cancer is 1 in 40,000, yet studies showed 1 in 500 girls suffered serious injury or death from Gardasil. I want to share Jeremiah's words with you today. On December 5th, 2003, I became a big brother. What I didn't know then was that our time together was limited. I did, however, know that my best bud had just been born. Over the years, I have shown him some things like how to hide from mom when he was in trouble, how to ride his bike, and how to play baseball. I taught him everything he needed to know, and he was just lucky enough to possess mad skills. The kid was perfect. Our mom and dad divorced shortly after Chris was born. However, one thing remained the same, and that was my brother, my best friend. We had plans for the future, including Major League Baseball and traveling the world together. As we got older, we got caught up in our own lives. I have regrets of not spending more time with him, or attending more ball games and riding more, or getting to know this bigger version of my best little friend. On August 14th, 2018, that opportunity was taken from me. For a whole week, my brother laid in a hospital bed. I held his hand. I told him stories from our childhood. I reminded him that we had plans. I told him I didn't think I could do it without him. I apologized for the things I didn't do, and I admitted how cool his hair was, really despite the things I said when I was mad. And that if he came home with me, then he could wear my clothes every day. You met my parents in October, and now you are meeting me. I hope you see what you have done to my family. You say these adverse reactions are rare. However, when it's your family member, your brother, your best friend, it doesn't feel so rare. My whole life is different. All I have left are memories and the questions, why? Why my baby brother? Hearing these heartbreaking stories day in and day out, having vaccine-injured loved ones and being damaged myself, it's hard not to get angry. Seeing our religious freedoms being challenged over a pharmaceutical product is beyond angering. So in honor of one of Christopher's and my favorite hip-hop artists, I would like to end my comment with a quote by Tupac Shakur. Out of anger comes controversy. Out of controversy comes conversation, and out of conversation comes action. And that's what we need from you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Is Miss Amber Barber in the room? Miss Amber Barber, you signed up to speak. Are you here? Miss Amber Barber, are you here? Thank you very much. That closes our public comment session.